Hello out there, folks. How are you doing? Thanks again for stopping by. We've got plenty to discuss for this week. Lots of news. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wins re-election over in Israel, his Likud party, despite Obama's best efforts. We'll talk about that. And of course, we have reaction from the left. We have some people just coming unglued about this, about Netanyahu's landslide victory. We'll talk about that. There are those out there who say Republicans need to lay off of Hillary about her emails. And we'll talk about that. And if you haven't heard, Obama says he wants mandatory voting. Yeah, what could go wrong here? I guess there's other countries that do this, but we'll take a look at that. And also there was some more Islamic violence this week, this time in Tunisia, the capital city of Tunis, and also some attacks in Yemen. Bombs going off, killing people, women, children. And we'll take a look at that. We also have one of Obama's regrets about his presidency that we will look at in some detail right here, right now on this, The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you have any questions for me, any comments, any concerns, if you just want to rant or vent, some people have put forward music requests also for the bumper rotation. You can feel free to do any of that. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. So, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his conservative Likud party retains political power in Israel. And I started thinking about, if you listen to the quick reports, and you should, Thursday I told you about Netanyahu's victory, and I led into it with the fact that Obama lending his support to a candidate or some event or even a business, this is the ultimate kiss of death. President Obama lobbied to bring the 2016 Olympics to Chicago. And this was early on in his presidency, like way back in 2009, long before it was cool to be against Obama, and he still failed. I mean, that was really it. He had peaked. All of that mock messiahship and, the God complex his voters had for him, and nothing. He could not even influence the Olympics, as did Mitt Romney, by the way, who was influential in bringing the games to Salt Lake City, Utah. And then, of course, the Deepwater Horizon was another thing I mentioned, the oil rig down in the Gulf owned by Transocean that had that accident back in 2010. That very oil rig was given an award for safety just prior to the accident by this administration. The administration backed the solar company Solyndra. Now, this was a scandal more than anything else. This is just, Obama out there being against jobs and against energy and against oil and whatever else he wants to be against. And he's going to back the losers. He's going to try to pick the winners and losers and, of course, back the losers. But the company received over $500 million and then just went bankrupt. But nonetheless, still a failure for an Obama-backed project. And then I brought up eBay, which Obama called out by name in the State of the Union speech. Yeah, and he did so as an example of job growth in the new rip-roaring Obama economy, of course. Within 24 hours of him uttering those words, eBay announced layoffs. But that's not all. I mean, Obama, there's a burger joint in Washington that he used to go to. It's called Raise Hell Burgers or something. It's gone. They had 2 locations. They're both shut down. He visited a place called Star Brewery in Dubuque, and bang, out of business. New Chet's Restaurant, Lincoln Furniture Company, Allentown Metal Works. Look these places up. Cardinal Fastener and Supply and Specialty Company. All of these places, business after business, Obama highlights, and they go under. But these places, of course, at least only closed their doors. Obama hugged a woman that owned a restaurant where he had breakfast one day in Ohio, and she died later that day. So, literally, I mean, this guy's like the Grim Reaper. He's got rats around him and flies landing on his face. I mean, what the heck is going on with this guy? You see this guy coming at you, wanting to shake your hand or help you out, just run, man. Run the other way. Of course, as far as candidates go, Obama went to a rally, and he talked up Mary Burke, running for governor up in Wisconsin. She lost. He went to Maryland to tell voters that Anthony Brown had spent his career fighting for the little guy. Of course, he lost. And Allison Lundigan Grimes, she tried to latch on to Clinton, but someone had to ask if she voted for Obama, and that was all it took to kill her campaign. And, you know, that's of course not to say that Obama can't get his way when he wants to with something that's under his direct control. For example, the border. Obama doesn't want it secure. Obama wants the border overrun with illegals. And since that's his job, it's his job to secure it, well, it's in his direct control, and he can get what he wants. So the border's overrun with illegals. So you see, Obama can get what he wants as long as something is in his direct control. But like with Israel, I mean, I'm convinced if Obama could, he would just announce the shutting down of Israel as a nation, and he'd just hand it over to the Palestinians, if he could. But Obama, who never seems to learn anything, of course, inadvertently helps Netanyahu get elected. Why? Because he backed the other guy, which is the kiss of death. The other guy, this Isaac Herzog and the Zionist party, or whatever they are, this is who Obama wanted to get in there, the leftist over in Israel. And he sent his little army over there to try to make that happen. And the Israelis, I mean, who wouldn't vote for Benjamin Netanyahu? Netanyahu takes the responsibility of the security of Israel very seriously. That's why he won, Mr. President. So he sat and sulked for a few days. And did you get the chance to see the New York Times piece on Netanyahu after his big win? You talk about vitriol. You talk about crybaby stuff. You know, and here we go with the lame race card being played in a foreign country, no less, by the New York Times. Here's the headline: Deep Wounds and Lingering Questions After Israel's Bitter Race. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't want to, personally, but I'm going to read some of this. Benjamin Netanyahu was poised to return to power, but there was a cloud over his apparent turnaround, the result of an increasingly shrill campaign that raised questions about his ability to heal Israel's internal wounds, or better, its standing in the world. He said there would be no Palestinian state under his watch. He railed against Israeli Arabs because they had gone out to vote. That is not at all what happened, Mr. New York Times. I don't even know who the guy was that wrote this, or girl. Barack Obama, with his minions over there, trying to make sure that Benjamin Netanyahu loses this election. His people are the ones that turned out this Arab vote and had all these liberals busing Arabs to the polls. This is what Netanyahu was talking about. And so he responded. He responded with a call for his supporters to vote. That was all he did. But of course, he's the racist. From the capitals of Europe to Washington to the West Bank to the streets of Israel, even while his critics said Mr. Netanyahu had reaffirmed his reputation as a cynical, calculating politician, it appeared that his approach succeeded in drawing votes from other right-leaning parties. But along the way, he angered the President of the United States. This is what this whole article is really about, by the way. See, somebody stood up to Obama. Somebody called out Obama on his foolishness, especially with this deal with Iran. That's what this article is all about. It's like, how dare you, Mr. Netanyahu, stand against anything Obama wants to do? How dare you? But along the way, he angered the President of the United States with a speech to Congress and infuriated European leaders eager to see the peace process move ahead to create a Palestinian state. The campaign for the parliament was divisive, exposing the fault lines in Israeli society between the religious and the secular, the left and the right. It exposed a fatigue with a man who is seeking to serve a fourth term as prime minister. Is that what it exposed? Because he won in a landslide, you know. I don't think it exposed fatigue with a man seeking his fourth term. I think it exposed is the Israelis understanding that Benjamin Netanyahu takes his responsibility very seriously to secure Israel, the nation of Israel, against the Islamic threat. He takes that very seriously, and I think the Israelis see it. I think they see that he takes it more seriously than Obama. That's why they voted for him for a fourth time, Mr. New York Times. And a fear over Israel's place in the international community. Much was driven by the tenor of the campaigns, which became personal and bitter. No more so than Mr. Netanyahu's campaign. I don't even want to read this. It is just such filth and trash. It's beyond the pale, really. Because Obama didn't get his way. And these guys, of course, are just latched on to Obama. They're going to go out there. They're going to say he disrespected the president. They're going to say he's racist. They're going to say whatever they have to do to undermine this election, just like Obama undermined the midterms back in November. These people, they just don't learn. They will never, ever learn. What disdain these clowns at the New York Times have for really the only adult in the room, the only adult in the conversation when it comes to the Islamic threat. And of course, it's all just a bunch of hooey. Now, along with the New York Times, Geraldo had plenty to say about Benjamin Netanyahu.
If I were President Obama, I would have sent Bibi Netanyahu a congratulatory postcard by snail mail. It is the appropriate thing to do to someone who has absolutely insulted the American constitutional system by coming here uninvited. For Bibi Netanyahu to run the campaign in a way that I believe was, to its core, made a racist appeal to Israeli hard-right voters. I sat in this very seat over the years, and I looked at that camera and I said that Bibi Netanyahu told me to my face that there will never be an independent Palestine on his watch. Bibi Netanyahu revealed his true self in this election, not only in his contempt for Arab voters, Arab Israeli voters, but also with his statement, unequivocal statement, that there will never be a two-state solution as long as he is prime minister. He bragged to me, Brian, he bragged to me that all he gave in his first term as prime minister to the Palestinians was a casino in the town of Jericho. He was so gleeful about that, about how little he has yielded to them. These people have been under occupation since 1967. You wonder why they are radicalized?
What did they do when they got Gaza? They send rockets in on a daily basis.
What was Gaza? What is Gaza?
It's
Gaza
is an
isolated, 1 mile wide strip. It's a prison. The United Nations and every international body has condemned Israel for the excessive use of force.
Geraldo, he's one of these guys. He just doesn't get it. He just does not. He just doesn't get it. He couldn't be more wrong about the situation between Israel and the Palestinians. Did you hear him say occupation, that these people are under occupation? Gaza is a prison? What is he, nuts? Netanyahu bragged to him that he's barely given anything to the Palestinians? Contempt for Arabs? Mr. Rivera, when the Palestinians, and for that matter, any of these Islamic pig organizations, they should be made to drop the whole annihilation of Israel part of their constitution, their mantra, before we even recognize them as an entity to be negotiated with. How about that, Mr. Rivera? You have Israel trying to live in peace. Their first day as a nation, they were attacked by these Islamic nutjobs. But Geraldo's, he's going to sit there and say, no wonder they're radicalized. No wonder the Palestinians are so radicalized, because they're so oppressed by Israel. And America's relationship with Israel is beyond repair, and that's somehow Netanyahu's fault? Geraldo, this president has disrespected Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu every chance he could. But it's Netanyahu's fault that relations have soured with our ally Israel? Now, he brought up race, just as the New York Times article did. Of course, the reason that they're doing that is because Netanyahu called for his supporters to vote, as I said before. Obama went over there. Obama sent his people over there to try to get everyone else to vote. They're busing people to the polls. So Netanyahu responded to that And, of course, he's the racist. Remember when Obama just walked out of a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu? He just up and walked out. He just said, this is what we're going to do. And then he, kind of like, this is what you're going to do. Let me know when you're done. And then he just up and walked out, went up to the residence and had dinner with his family. And the Israelis, Netanyahu and his entourage, they kind of sat around for a little bit and then were like, well, let's just go. I mean, they just left. You talk about disrespect. Rude and disrespectful to an ally. One of our best allies in the world. Certainly our only real good ally in that region. But Obama, what he did instead, I mean, he waited something like 2 days to finally call Netanyahu. He addressed Iran. Obama addressed Iran. Talk about fishing for support. I mean, he lost in a landslide here in the midterms. He lost in a landslide in Israel, and make no mistake, that election was probably as much about him as it was over here. Just sending his minions over there, I'm sure that pissed a lot of Israelis off. So he lost that. And what does this 2-year-old do? He addresses Iran and whines about his opposition here and his opposition in Israel.
Hello to everyone celebrating Nowruz across the United States and in countries around the world. Nowruz Mubarak. For thousands of years, this has been a time to gather with family and friends and welcome a new spring and a new year. I want to take this opportunity once again to speak directly to the people and leaders of Iran. As you gather around the Nowruz table, from Tehran to Shiraz to Tabriz, from the coasts of the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf, you're giving thanks for your blessings and looking ahead to the future. This year, we have the best opportunity in decades to pursue a different future between our countries. The international community, including the United States, has provided Iran with some relief from sanctions. Now our diplomats and our scientists are engaged in negotiations in the hopes of finding a comprehensive solution that resolves the world's concerns with Iran's nuclear program. The days and weeks ahead will be critical. Our negotiations have made progress, but gaps remain. And there are people in both our countries and beyond who oppose a diplomatic resolution. My message to you, the people of Iran, is that together we have to speak up for the future we seek. If Iran's leaders can agree to a reasonable deal, it can lead to a better path, the path of greater opportunities for the Iranian people. In other words, a nuclear deal now can help open the door to a brighter future for you, the Iranian people, who, as heirs to a great civilization, have so much to give the world. As the poet Hafez wrote, "It is early spring. Try to be joyful in your heart. For many a flower will bloom while you will be in clay." Thank you. And Nowruzatan Peruz.
I can't for the life of me figure this out. It's like he would rather be Iran's president. I mean, what country does he believe he is the president of? Whose side is he on? If you listen to me regularly, you've heard me say he is on their side. That's all there is. He just has to be. Is anyone looking out for American interests in all of this? That's another question I have. I mean, would that be too much to ask? In fact, I'll do it, Mr. President. My hand is raised. You're looking out for Iran. I'll look out for America. What do you say? He is essentially telling the Iranian people, I know it looks bad right now. I have no support in Congress. The Israeli people, they voted against me. I know this looks bad, but don't worry. Don't you fret your pretty little heads over there. A deal is coming. Don't worry. And to address the Iranian, what does Obama think this deal is? It just doesn't make any sense. He acts as if the Iranian people are like sitting around on pins and needles waiting for the outcome of this deal. Like they're all somehow on the edge of their seats. These are the same people, Mr. President. How many times have I mentioned this? These people rose up to overthrow the regime just a few short years ago. 2010, I think it was. And you, Mr. President, failed to back them up. And since you ignored them, they're still living under this oppressive regime, and now you think they want to hear from you? You have got to be kidding me. And what on earth is Nowruz? What is that? Nowruz? Nowruz? To everyone in America and around the world celebrating Nowruz. What is that? Nowruz? I didn't even know it was Nowruz and that I was supposed to be celebrating it. I went to work and everything. Were the schools closed? Did you celebrate Nowruz? If you're hearing the sound of my voice, I want to know if you celebrated Nowruz. You know, funny thing, I was in Walmart and I completely missed all of the Nowruz decorations. But now that Nowruz is over, if it's over, who knows, really, is all the Nowruz stuff on clearance so I can go pick some up? I don't want to be as ill-prepared next year as I was this year. We'll be back. Stay right there.
The Ray Warner Show is now available in all 58 states.
I've now been in 57 states. I think one left to go.
You are listening to The Ray Warner Show.
If there's nothing wrong with me, maybe there's something wrong with the universe.
You have reached the Bovine Chicken Chat Line, where you can chat with tons and tons of cows about chicken. All our cows are busy. While you're waiting, why not get to know some of these fuzzy fans of chicken? Heifer 9672 is a 1,200-pounder from Kentucky who likes long walks in the pasture, watching cars go by from the pasture, and eating the pasture. She's also an aspiring author, writing a book called The Burgers of Wrath. Bull 5441 is a bull from Chicago with a pierced nose and a nasty temper. But he loves people who eat chicken and the good folks at Chick-fil-A who make the chicken. Bull 5441's pet peeves are cow tipping and the color red, especially when it's meat. All our cows are still busy. Please try calling the Bovine Chicken Chat Line later. The cows thank you for calling and for not eating burgers. This call made possible by Chick-fil-A.
21 Signs of Doomsday. God said, mansaid.com. Noah's Ark, fact or fiction. Geologists say yes to crucifixion. Science says eat butter. God said, mansaid.com. Scientists study speaking in tongues. Hours of text and audio. God said, mansaid.com. Doctors flummox but what they found in female brains. St. Peter's fish, hellworms, extraterrestrials amongst us. God said, mansaid.com.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for listening. This is The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. If you want to email the show, if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, if you just want to tell me to shut up, if you have any feedback for the show, feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Now, David Gergen warned Republicans not to bully Hillary over the emails. The real danger, Gergen says, is Republicans being seen as bullying poor Hillary Clinton. Oh no, don't you dare, Republicans. Don't you dare drag her, the former Secretary of State, in front of some congressional oversight. Don't you dare. Who do you think you are, trying to hold her accountable to the people and the representatives of the people for her actions while conducting the people's business? Who do you think you are? Don't you bully her into compliance over the people's emails. The voters aren't going to like that, Republicans. Well, thanks for the tip, Gergen. We're so glad you're here to tell us these things. Thank you so much for the warning. Don't bully Hillary. You'll lose support over that. I love when these people do this. Where was Gergen when this happened?
One awkward moment, though, during the game. Maybe you heard about it. Maybe you saw it on one of the highlight reels. One awkward moment for Sarah Palin at the Yankee game. During the 7th inning, her daughter was knocked up by Alex Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's real funny, Mr. David Letterman. How does that even get on the air? Who writes for this guy? Sarah Palin was at that Yankee game that he's talking about. She was there with Willow, her 14-year-old daughter at the time. She was 14, Mr. Letterman. Why is that funny? And where was everybody on the left? But we're supposed to be worried about, it's going to look like we're bullying Hillary if we demand answers about her work and her tenure as Secretary of State. Who remembers the constant drubbing Condoleezza Rice took from the left? The cartoons and the mocking and the Aunt Jemima and all that. Where were these people on the left? Where were the people on the left saying, you better watch yourselves, Democrats. You don't want to be seen as bullying. The voters aren't going to like that. Where was all of that? But the Republicans are supposed to be concerned about the appearance of daring to question Hillary about why she took steps to purposefully conceal all of her correspondence during her time as Secretary of State. And I mean conceal from everybody forever, subpoena or otherwise. Now, Obama came out with something pretty off the wall. He wants mandatory voting. He wants to make it so that you either vote in America, if you're a citizen, or suffer the consequences.
I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. We shouldn't be making it harder to vote. We should be making it easier to vote. In Australia and some other countries, there's mandatory voting. It would be transformative if everybody voted. That would counteract money more than anything. If everybody voted, then it would completely change the political map in this country. Because the people who tend not to vote are young, they're lower income, they're skewed more heavily towards immigrant groups and minority groups. And, they're often the folks who they're scratching and climbing to get into the middle class, and they're working hard. And there's a reason why some folks try to keep them away from the polls. We should want to get them into the polls.
Mandatory voting. What about mandatory voter ID, Mr. President? What about that? Have you ever seen one of those man-on-the-street interviews that Sean Hannity has been known? He's been known to send his people out. I got a picture of Joe Biden. Who's this? And they don't know. Or better yet, Mr. President, listen to a game of Glenn Beck's Moron Trivia. Why, Mr. President, do you want to force the disinterested, the uninformed, to vote? Gee, I wonder why you would want that. Those that actually go to the polls, those that care enough to pay attention, those that even know that voting is happening, those people that make a somewhat informed decision, those people aren't good enough for Obama. And don't forget those midterms, the tidal wave referendum on Obama midterms. He said himself his policies were on the ballot, right? And of course he went around hammering Democrats. Remember that? Seems like I was constantly doing stories about Obama torpedoing Democrat campaigns. I think he wanted Republicans to win. But if you'll recall, he heard the people that didn't vote. These, he assumes, are his people. The 2/3 who didn't vote. So he wants to force everyone to vote. And he figures, why not? I mean, this is America, where the government is not supposed to be able to compel American citizens, say, to purchase a product, for example, but they're doing that with Obamacare. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. But they're doing it anyway. And why not compel Americans to vote as well? Why not? I like what Mark Levin said about this. Did you hear this?
He's supporting this not out of good government motivations, because he thinks everybody should participate. He's supporting this because he believes it'll help his party. That's all. That's simple. And because certain people that he believes who are within the Democrat constituency won't voluntarily vote, they should be compelled by the government to vote. So this is Obama, this is tyranny, this is totalitarianism. Oh, but they do it in Australia. Oh, well, they also do it in North Korea. Didn't mention that. He's given this a lot of thought. He thinks a lot about how to destroy the country and empower himself. And so here, once again, he's using the American people to advance an alien objective, to import a foreign mindset, a foreign policy, Not because he gives a damn about any of the people he's talking about. Because this is all about growing government and growing the Democrat Party. That's it. On the backs of the people. I guess now you're for voter identification, because in order to compel people to vote, and you need to know who's voting, then you must require identification. I think that's interesting. It's a good debating point, but I think there's more to it than this. And I would ask you this. If Obama rejects elections that don't turn out the way he wants, what's the difference who votes and how many people vote? We had an election in 2014. He may not like the outcome because he doesn't think everybody voted. Well, everybody didn't vote in either of his elections either. And everybody didn't vote when he was elected to the Senate. And everybody didn't vote when he was elected to the state Senate. So he's illegitimate. If this Congress is illegitimate because everybody didn't vote, then he's illegitimate because in both of his elections, everybody didn't vote. But his desire here is not good government. His desire here is not the franchise. His desire here is to grow government, the welfare state, his party even more, because he just said it.
Yeah, so Obama, he rejects the voice of the people anyway. He heard the two-thirds that didn't vote. So in his mind, the election was not legitimate anyway. So in the famous words of Hillary Clinton, what difference does it make? Of course, that's not what happened, but Obama doesn't care. He's moving forward with his leftist agenda, full speed ahead, and don't you dare get in his way, or he'll just try to take you out, and it doesn't matter where on the planet you are. Netanyahu pissed him off, so Obama tried to take him out, tried to undermine the election in Israel and get him tossed out. Obama, this man threw his own grandmother under the bus. Now, of course, the White House walked all this mandatory election stuff back. According to White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest, this was just some open-ended statement made by Obama. We're not supposed to take it too seriously. Okay. Stay there, folks. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Ray Warner Show. Resistance is futile.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
What makes the miracles of Jesus even more miraculous? Standing where they happened, in Israel. Come explore Jerusalem, where Jesus opened blind eyes. Visit the hills of Galilee, where Jesus fed the multitude. Stroll through Capernaum, where Jesus lived and taught and healed. To learn more about standing where it all happened in Israel, visit www.goisrael.com. Come visit Israel.
John and I just couldn't afford health insurance anymore. We exercise, we eat right, and we live a healthy lifestyle. Yet we were paying over $800 per month for a family of 4. Then a friend told us about MediShare. MediShare isn't insurance. It's a nationwide network of Christians who save money by sharing in each other's medical bills. Our share is almost 40% less than our old insurance premiums. We still see the same doctors and use the same hospitals if something does happen. The best part is that participating in MediShare exempts us from the tax penalties in the new health reform laws. So as long as we're in the program, the government's mandates to buy expensive insurance won't apply. You should call them today. I'm sure glad we did.
If you're a Christian, under 65, and a non-smoker, then MediShare could be the right choice for you. Call 1-866-330-8585 or visit meta-share.org. You do have a choice.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for listening. This is The Ray Warner Show, hosted by me, Ray Warner. If you want to email the show, if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, any feedback, if you need to rant or vent as much as I do, feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Now, I thought this was pretty funny, so I got it here. How long did Obama blame Bush? Just blame President Bush for everything and anything he could. Well, last week, Obama was in Cleveland doing a town hall, and someone stood up and asked the president, if you could go back and talk to yourself, what would you do differently? What do you regret about your presidency?
I would have told myself to anticipate that because the recession was so bad and so tough for so many people, that I was going to have to be more aggressive in explaining to the public how long it was going to take for the recovery to take place.
The president said that he regretted that he did not, quote, more aggressively, end quote, warn the American people just how bad it was under Bush. Yeah, so even though all that time he spent blaming Bush for anything and everything, even though all that, he wishes he could go back and blame it on Bush a little more. He wishes he could go back and really aggressively explain to the American people, Bush was so bad. He was so bad. This is going to take some time because things really hadn't bottomed out yet under Bush. No, of course not. When Bush left office, unemployment was around 5%. There are 92 million people out of work in this country. 92 million. That's a lot. I don't care what they say the unemployment rate is now. Under President Bush, it was nowhere near what it is now. Things are nowhere near as bad as they were now. But he wishes he could go back and really explain to the American people, boy, things are just so bad. Man, this is going to take a long time. Now, Ed Schultz, if you know Ed Schultz, you know he is the resident lunatic hothead over there at MSNBC. I mean, the guy is an absolute cartoon. He is literally a walking, living, breathing cartoon. How does anybody take this guy seriously? And you can say stuff like this and still have your own show on MSNBC.
If Obamacare is repealed, Americans will die. Now, if you are a Glenn Beck disciple and you hate President Obama, then the website would be healthcare.gov/dumbass. It amazes me that people don't love Obama. It's these the guys who don't like the middle class. These are the guys that are causing the shutdown. This is why they are freaking out about Obamacare. The popularity is killing them.
Do you know what they're talking about? Like this right-wing slut, what's her name, Laura Ingraham? Yeah, she's a talk slut. Sometimes I think they want Obama to get shot. I do. You damn right Dick Cheney's heart's a political football. We ought to rip it out and kick it around and stuff it back in him.
That is Ed Schultz over there on MSNBC. And they wonder, why is nobody watching our network? Well, Ed Schultz, the live cartoon, after the 2 police officers were shot in Ferguson, said this.
What about disarming the police? What about just having them carry nightsticks and the authority to arrest? I mean, now it would take a brave person to do something like that, but if you really want to, there are places on the face of this earth that there are police officers that don't carry firearms. Absolutely. Now, you know, I know the right wing's going to think I'm crazy for saying that, but if you really want change, you have to institutionally show it to the people that you want to do this. And that would be part of a big social engineering project if Ferguson is going to turn around. That's how I see it.
This is his response to police officers being shot. We need to take away their guns and just let them go around with their nightsticks? What is this guy, insane? I mean, literally insane. Can you see it now? Coming over the radio. Shots fired, shots fired. Everybody grab your nightsticks. Lock and load. How does one even come up with something that stupid? Take away the cops' gun. The cops get shot, and we need to take away their guns. We need to take away their ability to defend themselves, and us, by the way. We had some more Islamic violence this week, this time in Tunisia, northern Africa. Tunisia, if you don't know, sits right in between Algeria and Libya, kind of. along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. In the capital city of Tunis is the Bardo Museum. So not content with the last museum that they destroyed, the Bardo Museum went under attack. 25 people killed, mostly foreign tourists. Word is that these terrorists were even telling people to get down. They were actually gunning for the tourists intentionally. And it took them a while, but the Islamic State finally came out and took credit for this attack. I guess as of now, they've arrested somewhere around 10 people, 9 or 10 people. So they have suspects, and they have made some arrests. The president of Tunisia is calling for his people to help fight against terrorism, so I guess he's going to be joining in now. We got Jordan and Egypt all pissed off. These are all Arab nations that are very upset with the Islamic State and wanting to fight terrorism. There was also some attacks in Yemen. The Islamic State bombing mosques over there in Yemen. So even if you're a Muslim, they don't care. Remember, you have to be the right brand of Islam in order to be safe. And the right brand of Islam is whatever Islam is in charge, or the military power of that time. So more Islamic violence this week. The one over there in Yemen, by the way, there was a lot of children involved in that one. I think it was in the hundreds. So another Islamic attack out there. Is this going to help wake anybody up? I guess we'll see. And I saw this article. This was in Breitbart. And I'm going to throw this in here because it's a really good article. Iran nuclear deal demonstrates Obama's failure to connect the dots to Islamic terror. On the morning of September 11, 2001, Americans awoke to the realization of international terrorism. Soon thereafter, the federal government began seeking answers as to how such a calamity could have possibly taken place and which terror networks were behind it. The consensus from Washington seemed to be that intelligence agencies had failed to connect the dots that led directly to the horror of nearly 3,000 dead Americans on our home soil. It was a mistake we vowed not to make again. But now, with the rogue nation of Iran, we seem to be as negligent as we were in the 1990s, only this time willingly so. After overthrowing the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2001, President George W. Bush, seeking to prevent another domestic attack from happening, turned his attention toward Iraq and decided to invade in 2003, citing the missed signs and vowing to connect the dots. Democrats, including Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, supported the invasion. But as soon as political winds shifted, they politicized it by blaming Bush, even going so far as to question his leadership before 9/11. Why weapons of mass destruction were not found in mass quantities in Iraq has never been conclusively explained, though the possibility that they were moved during the delayed invasion is as plausible as any. And I just want to add in here, they did find weapons of mass destruction, remember? Yeah, they did. Issues surrounding U.S. involvement will be debated for decades. Now, however, with the power shift in the Middle East, a dangerous Iranian Islamic nation is now working toward a nuclear weapon, making the Iranians far more dangerous than Saddam's Iraq. But rather than recognize a real threat, President Obama and Democrats in Congress seem oblivious to the danger, if not in outright denial. Rather than seek tougher sanctions, take a more aggressive stance, and portray national strength, the president is supporting a deal with the Iranian government that will allow their nuclear weapons program to continue. This deal moves forward despite some serious dots that should be connected. Iran is currently the biggest sponsor of terrorism in the world. It supports terrorists in Gaza, Lebanon, the Golan Heights, and Yemen. Iran supports Assad's slaughter in Syria and Shiite militias in Iraq, the same militias who are responsible for killing and wounding hundreds, if not thousands, of U.S. troops with IED attacks. Iran downed Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, helped al-Qaeda blow up 2 U.S. embassies in Africa, tried to assassinate the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. in Washington, D.C., and according to a U.S. district court in New York, materially and directly supported al-Qaeda in the attacks of 9/11. There is even evidence of Hezbollah training camps in Latin America. More frightening is the Iranian nuclear program, which is currently enriching large quantities of uranium to build atomic weapons, hiding the evidence from the world. With their sponsorship of terror, should we expect Iran not to use nuclear weapons in future attacks? But our Nobel Peace Prize winning president is desperate for any deal to give him a much-needed foreign policy triumph, even one that will put the U.S. and the rest of the world in jeopardy. Obama, though, insists his deal will freeze Iran's program for a decade, preventing it from moving forward. Yet Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is more realistic. That's why this deal is so bad, he told Congress. It doesn't block Iran's path to the bomb, it paves Iran's path to the bomb. Ignoring Netanyahu's pleas, Obama decided to strike references to Iran and Hezbollah from the terrorism subsection of the intelligence community's 2015 Worldwide Threat Assessment Report. With a weak president at the helm, 47 Republican senators took the initiative and penned a short letter to the leaders of Iran, reminding them that the U.S. Senate has a role to play in foreign affairs, and that any deal between the U.S. and Iran will be temporary at best. Absent from that list was Mississippi Senator Thad Cochran, who believes that everybody in Washington, including President Obama, quote, understands we're not going to just sit back and let potential adversaries put us in a position where we can't defend ourselves and protect our country's interests, end quote. Cochran, in siding with President Obama and Senate Democrats, obviously prefers a more moderate approach to the situation. Sadly, this is the same oblivious and naive attitude that led to 9/11. Granted, we cannot continue to be the world's police force, and we do not desire another war in the Middle East. But with the serious threat of a nuclear-armed Iran in the very near future, the time for passive indifference is over. Let us hope we can finally connect the dots this time before it's too late. Well, what would that involve? That's the end of the article, by the way, before it's too late. You know, if Obama ever did, how do you connect the dots and come up with anything other than Iran just needs to be stopped altogether? And I am all for, if I were the president, Iran would have no nuclear program, because I wouldn't have threatened to shoot down Israel's jets. I would have helped them. Israel and the United States ought to be running joint missions into Iran and bombing their centrifuges, bombing their uranium enrichment sites, bombing the intercontinental ballistic missile program. Why are we allowing any of this to happen? And I'll tell you why. As I've said many times before, he's on their side, folks. He's in our White House. He's president of the United States, but he's on their side. He is against America, and he is against Israel, our ally. Plain and simple. That's it for this week, folks. Thanks for listening again today. And don't forget, if you want to email me, if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns about the show, you can feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Also, don't forget, there's a new opinion page. It's been up there for about a month now. I've got a fella sending me some articles that he's written and compiling other information that I'm posting there. You need to check that out. And I don't know how you listen to The Ray Warner Show. I don't know how you get it. But there are any number of ways that you can. You can get The Ray Warner Show and the Quick Reports by going to theraywarnershow.com. And you can subscribe there. If you do, you'll get a link in your email. You can also subscribe to The Ray Warner Show YouTube channel. Every show is posted on YouTube. Every show and Quick Report is also posted on the Facebook and on the Twitter. You can follow us there and get the show. You can also subscribe at iTunes and get the show. You can download it from iTunes. You can download it from theraywarnershow.com, and then you'll have it on the go. However you listen to the show, I am so grateful that you do. Keep listening, and if you like what you hear, tell your friends. Let's spread the word. And that's going to do it. We'll see you next week. So long, folks.